Dad told me I wasn't allowed to touch the thermostat, so I bought a heater and skyrocketed the electric bill instead. For as long as I can remember, my dad, 55M, has been extremely controlling about the thermostat. Like, stereotypical dad-level obsession times 10, our house always had this unspoken rule. Dad controls the temperature, period. If you're cold, put on a sweater. If you're hot, tough luck, drink water. The thermostat is Dad's sacred domain. Now, I get it. Heating is expensive, and like I said, money's tight. But we're not destitute. We can afford to keep the house at a livable temperature. Except Dad's definition of livable is, well, let's just say I could see my breath in my room some mornings this past winter. He keeps the heat at like 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 degrees Celsius during the day, and turns it even lower at night. Our place is an old, poorly insulated house in New England, so winter nights get brutal. My 16-year-old sister and I would literally wear coats indoors sometimes. Mom would shiver under blankets. Yet if any of us dared to nudge the thermostat up a degree, Dad would freak out about the bill and toughen up, it's not even that cold. It's not just heat. In summer, he barely uses AC, so we're sweating. But this story focuses on winter because that's when things went down. Pushing back, mildly, this past January, during a record cold snap, I finally had enough. I worked late hours, restaurant job, and when I'd come home around midnight, the house would be freezing. Dad would have turned the heat down to like 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 12 degrees Celsius, since everyone's asleep. I'd quietly bump it up to like 65 so I could sleep without seeing my breath. And almost every time, by morning he'd noticed, and I'd get a lecture. It became a daily argument. Dad, did you touch the thermostat last night? It's set to 65. I told you to leave it at 55 at night. Me, yeah, I did. I'm tired of freezing, Dad. I can't sleep when it's that cold. Dad, blankets exist for a reason. Do you pay the heating bill? No, you don't. Until you pay bills, you follow my rules. Don't touch it. Round and round we went. My mom, 52F, would sometimes side with me softly like, honey, the kids are really cold. But she never outright stood up to him. My sister would just silently suffer or pile on 10 blankets. I started to feel like a stranger in my own home, like it wasn't a place of comfort, just a house with a dictator running it. I tried reasoning. I showed Dad my research that keeping a house too cold can actually cause illnesses, or how a space heater might help. He called it nonsense, waste of money. Ironically, we ended up wasting money anyway because in that cold snap, a pipe in our basement burst from freezing. That cost a lot to fix. I thought that might make him relent a bit. Nope, he blamed it on faulty insulation and still refused to adjust the thermostat beyond his rigid rules. The petty plan. After one particularly nasty morning fight where Dad basically told me I was an ungrateful brat, and if I didn't like how he ran the house I should move out. Ouch, but okay. I hatched a petty little plan. If I wasn't allowed to touch the thermostat, fine, I'd find another way to stay warm. I scraped together some cash from work and bought a small electric space heater for my bedroom. It had an adjustable thermostat of its own and even a timer. Important detail. Our electricity bill is in both my parents' names, and Dad usually only pays attention to the gas heating bill in winter. Electric was usually higher in summer due to AC when he let Mom use it sparingly, but in winter it was relatively low. I figured I could run my little heater at night and Dad might not notice the extra electricity usage until later. And by then, I'd already have some nights of sweet, sweet warmth under my belt. The first night with my space heater was glorious. I set it to a comfy 72 degrees Fahrenheit, 22 degrees C, and basked in my cozy, warm room while the rest of the house was an icebox. I slept like a baby for the first time in weeks, no exaggeration. I'd wake up toasty, turn it off, hide it in my closet, and go about my day. I kept this secret from my sister too, just because I didn't want her accidentally snitching or using it in her room and getting caught. For about 2 weeks, this went on. Dad would still bitch about the thermostat arguments. I still occasionally nudged it to a sane temperature when he wasn't looking, but I felt like I had a secret weapon. Petty revenge, right? I thought I was a freaking genius. The electric bill blows up. Then the electric bill arrived. And I had not calculated just how much juice that little heater was drawing. To be fair, I was running it like 8 to 10 hours a night. Every night, so. Yeah. The bill was nearly double what it usually is for January. I wasn't home when Dad opened it, but I sure heard about it later. That evening, he was fuming. He thought some appliance was malfunctioning, or maybe a neighbor was leaching power. He went on this big tirade at dinner, waving the bill around. Mom looked worried, I kept my head down, and my sister was just trying to avoid the crossfire. I thought I might actually get away with it because Dad wasn't immediately assuming it was me. He was ranting about these damned power companies and something's not right. I should have kept my mouth shut. But feeling cocky and righteous, and honestly guilty, seeing Mom's stressed face. I said, "It's been a cold month. Maybe it's just higher because we've been trying to keep warm." Dad zeroed in on me with laser eyes. "What do you mean we?" "The thermostat has been the same. You think I'm stupid? You know something about this increase?" I'm a terrible liar under pressure. I stammered something about maybe the fridge using more power. It was a lame excuse, I know. He didn't buy it. After dinner, I panicked and quietly moved the heater from my closet to my car trunk, thinking maybe I could pretend it never existed. Too late. My dad must have been suspicious because that night, maybe around midnight, he burst into my room. I woke up startled to him ripping apart my room. He went straight to the closet and saw it was gone, then to the garage where he found the empty heater box. I'd been stupid and left the packaging there. When he came back inside, I knew I was screwed. He demanded I hand over the heater. I caved and went to get it from my car, figuring the jig was up. He looked like he was going to explode. Veins on forehead, the whole 9 yards. He said very quietly, which was scarier than yelling, "You deliberately disobeyed me, went behind my back, and cost this family money we don't have. All because you're a selfish little brat who can't follow simple rules under my roof." I was tired of being talked to like that. I snapped back. "I wouldn't have needed to if you weren't keeping the house like a damn meat locker. It's my money that bought the heater, and I'll pay the difference on the bill. You're the one always preaching responsibility." "Well, I am taking responsibility for my comfort since you don't care." That did not go over well. We launched into the ugliest fight we've ever had. Yelling, swearing, years of resentment pouring out. It woke my mom and sister, who tried to calm us down, but Dad was on a rampage. He said if I pull another stunt like that, I could find somewhere else to live. I was so angry I said, "Maybe I will." He then did something I didn't expect. He took the space heater out to the backyard and literally smashed it with a crowbar, the one he uses to pry wood for the fireplace. We all just watched from the kitchen door in shock. He comes back in, points a finger at me, and says, "Next time, it'll be your computer or your car." That felt like a threat, and it shut me up real fast. I'm not stupid. I know I'm 19, and if he really wanted to be a jerk, he could make me move out with 30 days' notice, or even call the cops if another fight broke out and claim I was the aggressor. He's not above twisting things. Cold War. Literally. So I went silent. Retreat strategy. The next week was tense and frigid. Dad, in a show of dominance, set the thermostat even lower. Like 58 degrees Fahrenheit, 14 degrees Celsius in the day, just to spite me. My sister got sick with a bad cold, likely from the stress and cold. Mom was miserable but kept telling me quietly, "Just apologize, keep the peace. He's under so much pressure." That made me angry because it's always us bending to keep him happy. I refused to apologize. In fact, I just avoided him altogether. We more or less stopped talking unless necessary. It was like living with a hostile roommate. I crashed at my friend's house a couple nights just to get away from the toxic atmosphere. Mom begged me to come home, and I did, but it wasn't the same. In that silent week, something shifted in me. I realized this wasn't just about a thermostat or a heater. It was about control. My dad has always been old school. My roof, my rules. He grew up poor and had a rough childhood, and I suspect part of him gets almost a sick sense of power from denying us little comforts, because he had to survive without them. Like suffering is a virtue he must impart on us. It's twisted. And I wasn't going to enable it quietly anymore. But I also knew frontal assault wasn't working. He'd just tightened the grip. So I thought about what might actually get through to him, or at least shake things up. The skyrocketing bill. Phase 2. I had already unintentionally jacked up the electric bill once. And that clearly hit a nerve. Because money is the one thing Dad truly stresses over. If I wanted him to actually reconsider his approach, maybe hitting him in the wallet in a bigger way was the answer. It's not like I could afford to move out yet. I was saving, but not enough. So I did something that might have been stupid, but I was past caring. Our house has electric baseboard heaters in some rooms. From years ago, rarely used because Dad insists on the main thermostat being enough. They're pretty inefficient and expensive to run. Late one night, when everyone was asleep, I cranked the baseboard heaters in the living room and my sister's room. She was asleep under a mound of blankets and didn't notice. I also may have accidentally left the downstairs bathroom's electric heater on full blast after taking a late shower. Basically, I tried to covertly use as much electricity as possible for heat without Dad noticing immediately. I only did this for like a week, on and off, mostly when I was the last awake. I also plugged in an old space heater from the garage, an ancient one Dad had stored away, likely forgot it existed, on an extension cord in the basement, pointing at nothing, and hid it behind some junk so it wasn't obvious. Real fire hazard crap. I know. I was careful not to leave it unattended long. I was angry and desperate, not keen on burning the house down. I was banking on the next electric bill, coming in like a nuke. During this time, anytime Dad complained about the cold or asked why it wasn't warming up as expected, since he'd sometimes grudgingly run the heat during the day if it was like dangerously cold, Mom and I would exchange looks. Mom even secretly turned the thermostat up a couple times when Dad wasn't looking. A tiny rebellion of her own, I think, seeing my sister with red nose and me in triple layers. Dad caught those once or twice and bitched, but interestingly, he didn't blow up at Mom like he did at me. He'd just grumble and put it back down. That double standard pissed me off too. He weirdly respects my mom as an obedient wife even when she's semi-disobedient, but with me, his son, it's like he was threatened by challenge. Anyway, the bill arrived, and it was insane. Like, triple what it was supposed to be in winter. I had successfully created an electrical monster. My dad's eyes practically bugged out of his head. Over $600 for 1 month of electricity, when normally in winter it's like $200. I'll never forget the way he looked at it, then at all of us like we were conspirators in some grand plot, which, I guess I was. He freaking interrogated us. Mom played clueless. Maybe something's wrong with the meter. My sister truly was clueless and said she didn't know anything. I just stayed quiet or shrugged, which made me look suspicious as hell. He called an electrician friend to check for faulty wiring, or if our water heater was broken or something. I was sweating a bit, worrying some of my antics might be discovered, or maybe I overdid it and actually caused an appliance to malfunction. The friend found nothing obvious. I had already turned off and stashed the basement heater by then. I could see Dad piecing it together slowly, like he'd walk by the baseboard heater knob and be like, "Why is this set to 80? I would quickly say, "Oops, must have knocked it, my bad," and lower it innocently. Little things like that. He started suspecting sabotage, I could tell. One night I came home from work and found him in the living room, staring at the thermostat, which was off at that moment. He said without looking at me, "I don't know what game you're playing, but it stops now. I'm not going to be driven out of my own home by my own family." The melodrama was thick. I told him I had no idea what he meant. He just shook his head and muttered, "Enough, enough," breaking point. The next day, a Saturday, we had a family meeting that turned into a final showdown. Dad essentially accused Mom and me of disrespecting him, undermining his decisions, and causing the bills to skyrocket behind his back. Mom actually spoke up. "They're cold, dear. We are all cold. We can't live like this." I was proud of her in that moment. He didn't take it well. He started on a speech about how he works hard to provide, and how he survived growing up with 5 siblings in a house where you wore socks to bed or you'd freeze, and this generation is soft, and on and on. I realized then, this wasn't just about money. It was about some twisted pride and trauma from his past. I really did, to be calm and tell him we appreciate his hard work, but we need a reasonable environment to live in, and maybe the bills going up are a sign that he needs to adjust, not just us. He snapped that if I wanted to live in a heated resort, I could pay rent or move out. I said I'd pay for the damned heating bill difference if it meant not living in an igloo, though really I couldn't afford to pay much while also saving to leave. We got heated. Pun intended again. My sister was quietly crying. My mom was begging us both to calm down. Then, I said something I regret, but it just spilled out. I told him, maybe the reason you're so obsessed with control is because you had no control when you were a kid, and you can't stand it. But guess what, Dad? You're not making us stronger or better by doing this. You're just making us hate being here. He went silent. His face went through a whole journey of shock, hurt, and rage. Then he told me to get out. Not like leave this discussion, but get out of this house. If you don't like it, leave. I was stunned for a second. Mom immediately jumped in saying he didn't mean it, we should all cool off. But he said, "No, I mean it. I've had enough. He wants to be an adult, let him find out what real life is like. I want you out in a week. That's the end of it." And then he walked out of the room, got in his truck, and drove off. Probably to go chop wood or punch a tree, who knows. The fallout, I wish I could tell you that was just him blowing smoke. But he gave me a written 30-day notice to vacate. I guess he Googled tenant rules. I'm not technically a tenant since I don't pay rent, but he wanted it documented. He said I didn't actually have to wait 30 days. He'd prefer if I was gone by the end of the week. My mom was devastated. My sister was a mess begging me not to go. I was equal parts furious and heartbroken. I was planning to move out ASAP anyway, but being kicked out by your own dad over this, it's just sad. I lined up a place to crash temporarily. A coworker had a spare room for cheap and understood the urgency. I packed my stuff over a few days. Dad barely spoke to me, and when he did, it was just coldly logistical, like, "You'll drop off your house key when you're done." Mom tried one last time to mediate, to get him to reconsider. They had huge fights behind closed doors about it. I don't know what exactly was said, but it sounded like Mom was giving him an ultimatum about their marriage if he went through with kicking me out. But Dad's stubborn as hell and said he wouldn't budge. On the day I left, my dad actually wasn't home. I think it was easier for both of us that way. My mom helped me carry boxes to my car, crying the whole time. My sister made me promise a dozen times I'd text and come visit. I felt like I wasn't just leaving a house, I was leaving a war zone, and two people I wanted to protect, Mom and Sis, stuck with the tyrant. Before I drove off, I found a note slipped in my bag from Mom. She basically said she was going to try to talk sense into him, and that I was welcome back if things changed, and that she was proud of me for standing up for myself, even if it all went to hell. That note made me sob like a baby once I read it at my coworker's place. Now what? Abrupt not-so-happy endings. It's been a couple weeks since I moved out. The house is, from what I hear, as cold as ever, both literally and figuratively. Mom texts me daily, like clandestine messages from inside a prison. Things like, "He's very quiet," or "He misses you, I can tell," even if he won't say it. My sister says Dad isn't yelling anymore, but that's because there's no one challenging him now. Which just breaks my heart, honestly. It's like I took the fire of conflict with me and left an icy cave behind. Dad hasn't reached out to me at all. Not even a, "Did you get there okay?" or anything. His pride is ferocious. I have this mix of anger and pity towards him. On one hand, screw him for doing this to his own family over something as dumb as thermostat control. On the other hand, I see now that it was never about the thermostat. It was about power, control, fear of change, and maybe his own unresolved issues from a hard life. But those don't excuse how he treated us. As for me, I'm working more hours, saving more. The coworker's spare room is a temporary fix. I'm looking for a room to rent closer to school. Oh, I'm starting community college soon. Another sore point with Dad, who thinks I should be working full-time instead. I swing by to drop stuff off for my mom or pick up mail. Dad's usually at work when I do. I haven't seen him since I left. Part of me wants to have some big reconciliation where he admits he was wrong, or at least where we talk it out. I won't hold my breath. My sister says he's been working on some project in the garage a lot. He does woodwork as a hobby. She swears she heard him listening to some old music that he used to play with me. He taught me guitar, and we jammed to classic rock. I think that's her sweet way of saying, he's sad you're gone. Maybe he is. I'm sad too. This isn't how I wanted it to go. But I wasn't allowed to touch the thermostat, so I touched something bigger, his ego, and the whole house nearly burned down from that, metaphorically. If there's any silver lining, it's that my mom and sister are maybe standing up for themselves a bit more now, in little ways. Sis told me she convinced Mom to get her a new thick duvet, and Dad didn't protest. Mom told Dad if he ever pulled the smashing stuff with a crowbar stunt again, she'd take Sis and go to her sister's. I think he got the message, in his own gruff way. They're still there, trying to coexist. I worry about them, but I also feel some relief being out of that environment. I don't know what's going to happen long term. Will Dad and I ever patch things up? Will he ever soften up and realize why this all happened? Or will we drift apart, both too stubborn to bend? I honestly have no clue. What I do know is I'm breaking the cycle. When I have my own place, hopefully soon, or my own family one day, I sure as hell won't make thermostat wars a part of our life. We'll be warm or cool to our comfort. And we'll talk about things like adults. Because this was some generational trauma BS that went nuclear over a damn heater. Thanks to everyone who read this long saga. I wish it had a neater ending. But real life isn't neat. Right now, it's abrupt and raw and unresolved. And maybe that's okay, for now. TLDR. My dad is a thermostat tyrant who kept our house freezing. I secretly used a space heater, spiking the electric bill. Massive fights ensued, culminating in me intentionally skyrocketing the next bill as a form of rebellion. It turned into a generational power struggle, and my dad ultimately kicked me out rather than yield control. Now we're estranged. My mom and sister are coping in the cold, and I'm starting life on my own sooner than expected, all over a small act of thermostat defiance that revealed much deeper family issues.